Hello everybody, I'm Grant Fluff from Fletcher Sports Zone and welcome back to another YouTube video. And tonight we got episode 3 of Hall of Fame or Hall of Good, second running back edition. I told you guys I would be back sometime within the next week to pump out another one of these. And here we are. We have 15 more running backs to dive into today, and we are going to head right into it. But before we begin, I would like to say my thoughts and prayers to NFL Hall of Fame running back Hugh Mcelhaney, who passed away at age 93 earlier today. He was a first ballot NFL Hall of Famer, getting inducted in 1970. He played from 1952 to 64, having 5,281 career regular season rushing yards, along with 38 touchdowns. Made 5 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros. Maybe not fantastic numbers in today's modern era. That's just he had a very solid running back career. But again, back in the 50s and early 60s, that was nearly unheard of, having 5,000 rushing yards. And tonight, I'm pretty sure everyone but 2 of these running backs have over 5,000 rushing yards. And we're going to go dig right on in. As you can see by the thumbnail, we have Marshawn, Lynch, and Bo Jackson. But who else will join the list? Well, let's get this underway. First and foremost, we have Otis Anderson. All right, this is a pretty interesting one. Anderson was a very solid running back. Made 2 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro, won the Super Bowl twice with the Giants. I accidentally misspelled his name there. That's my bad. Anyway, Otis Anderson, Cardinals and Giants legend. Look at these awards that he has won. NFC UPI Player of the Year award. He was a Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl 25 MVP, 1979 Offensive Rookie of the Year, 1989 Comeback Player of the Year. Look at all of these rushing yards. 10,273 in the regular season, add 433 to that total in the postseason. He literally made an All-Pro his rookie year, setting his career high in rushing yards with 1,605. That's what he did with the Cardinals back in 1979. And let me tell you something, as an 8th round pick, or rather as an 8th overall pick, he has done very well for the Cardinals. And then, of course, transfer over to the Giants. Played 8 years in St. Louis, 7 with New York. Really, other than 1989 and 1990, he wasn't fantastic with the Giants. We're primarily looking at stats with the Cardinals, where he had literally 7,999 rushing yards with the Cardinals. That's right. 1 total yard short of 8,000 career rushing yards with one team. If I'm not mistaken, he still leads pretty much every single rushing record in Cardinals history. Is he a Hall of Famer or not? I think he absolutely is. Long overdue. This man retired in 1992, which means the first time he could have been on the ballot was in 1997. Yeah, the fact he hasn't gotten in the Hall of Fame yet is pretty alarming. I think it's honestly disrespectful. This guy won Super Bowl MVP, like I said, over 10,000 rushing yards. I mean, I think if you have over 10,000 rushing yards, you should automatically be in. That's kind of what I look at when I determine Hall of Fame running backs. You need to make that 10K milestone before I can put you in. And Anderson did that, and he did that with a very weird middle of his career. He was very good for the first 3 years, slowed down 1982 because of the strike-shortened season, played great from 83 to 84, and then kind of from 84 85 to 87, he just was relatively quiet, even 1988 for the most part. But 1989, he got the starting job for the Giants, ran for over 1,000 rushing yards for the last time in his career with 14 touchdowns, which was a career high. And then 1990, the Giants beat the Bills in the Super Bowl. He followed up with the second most touchdowns he would have in a season with 11. Yeah, I think Otis Anderson is a Hall of Famer. Again, I know he wasn't necessarily consistent, especially again in those mid 80s. He kind of fell off a little bit, but then in the late 80s, he picked right back up where he left off before kind of phasing out in the 90s. But again, I think over 10,000 rushing yards, more than enough to get you in the Hall. All right, we move on next to Steven Jackson. This is an interesting one, I think. Former Los Angeles Ram, Atlanta Falcon, and New England Patriot. 3 Pro Bowls. Made the Pro Bowl in 2006, 2009, 2010. Those are some terrible 2009 and 2010 Ram teams where he was just carrying the load. His career high in rushing yards came in 2009, 1,416 rushing yards. The only issue was he only had 4 touchdowns that year, so still overall not impressive. His career high in touchdowns was the first time he made the Pro Bowl in 2006, 13 rushing touchdowns, and that was actually his best season overall. Wow, 1,528 yards. My apologies. I was pointing out his second greatest year in the NFL, but not his first. He also spent 2 years with the Atlanta Falcons, scored 12 total touchdowns there before ending his career with the Patriots and scoring a touchdown in an AFC Championship game against the Broncos. But that would be the last game of his career. I'm pretty sure he signed a one-day contract with the Rams back in, 2017, 2018, 2019, according to Pro Football Reference. Wow. So he even stayed a free agent for a few years, but he finally retired as a Ram, meaning he is going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame in 2024. Not going to make it first ballot, I can guarantee you that. But he definitely has a chance to make the Hall of Fame. Over 11,000 rushing yards with 69 regular season touchdowns. Again, my thing is, if you get over 10,000 yards, you're in the Hall of Fame in my book. And he had, let's see here, 8 straight seasons with 1,000-yard rushing on some abysmal, and I mean abysmal, Ram teams. And even as a backup running back in 2004, he still managed 673 rushing yards. Now, here's the issue you can go against Steven Jackson. Other than the 3 Pro Bowls to his name, he's kind of lost in the dark. He never really won any accolades. By the time the NFL top 100 players from every season countdown began, he was already out of his prime, so he never really made any of those. Again, he's going to make it solely off the 11,000 rushing yards and 3 Pro Bowls. But again, with the 11,000 plus rushing yards, I do think it is enough to get Steven Jackson in the Hall of Fame. All right, so we're 2 for 2 so far. Move on to Michael Pittman. Ow. Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the broadcast. That was crazy. So my lights flickered for a moment, and then I lost Wi-Fi for a couple of minutes, and then I knew the stream was still running. Oh my God, what a bizarre sequence that is. Well, glad to say we are back, despite the technical difficulties. So anyway, just to recap. Oh my goodness. Whoa, where are we going here? Otis Anderson and Steven Jackson, both in the Hall of Fame in my book. Now we go on to Michael Pittman Sr., who was Michael Pittman Jr.'s son. All right, let's go relook at his career here. So he spent time Cardinals, the Bucks, and the Broncos. Had over 5,000 rushing yards, 5,627, 25 regular season touchdowns in 151 games, and he won Super Bowl 37 with the Buccaneers. Wow. Considering he was a fourth-round pick, he was very solid. He had a great career. He didn't have a great rookie year, only 91 rushing yards. His career high in rushing was 926, which was in 2004 with 7 touchdowns, which was also his career high in touchdowns. And then retired as a member of the Broncos back in 2008. Yeah. So for Hall of Fame purposes, Michael Pittman, I'm going to have to say no on this one. 5,000 is a little too little. Again, maybe if he's playing in a different type of era where he was playing in like the 50s or 60s, you can compare him to different running backs and realize that he stood out more than the other. But considering this was in the early 2000s, yeah, I got to say Hall of Fame for Michael Pittman, that's a no for me. I wish I could give more of an argument, but yeah, just looking at his base statistics, he definitely doesn't have enough to make it. All right, moving on to Bo Jackson. This is a fun one because this is the whole controversy. Does Bo Jackson make the Hall of Fame if he is not injured? Now the stats we have in front of us. 515 rushes. This is regular season. For 2,782 yards and 16 touchdowns. And he made a Pro Bowl in 1990. Well, he is eligible for the Hall of Fame because he made a Pro Bowl. That's about the only thing I can say. People can imagine how good Bo Jackson would have been if he stayed healthy his entire career. And I'm not denying that he wouldn't have been a great running back his entire career if he was able to play 10 full seasons, if he wasn't a multi-sport athlete, whatever the case may be. Heck, he probably comes back to football if he wasn't a multi-sport athlete, playing baseball on the side. But here's the thing. And I know Bo Jackson still, only playing in 38 regular season career games is technically considered an NFL legend. I get that. However, no, he's not even close to the Hall of Fame. And if you think he is a Hall of Fame running back, I think you're nuts. I think he has a better shot at making the Baseball Hall of Fame because he played baseball for way longer. But football absolutely doesn't stand a chance. To his credit, from 1987 to 1990, the years he was active, he did have the league's longest rushing touchdown in 3 of those 4 seasons. 91 yards in 87, 92 yards in 89, 88 yards in 1990. His best season was probably in 1989, 173 carries, 950 yards, 4 touchdowns, longest being 992 yards, averaging a career best 86.4 yards per game. And he only had 1 performance in the playoffs. AFC divisional round against the Cincinnati Bengals. 6 rushes for 77 yards. Suffers a leg injury that ends his career. The Raiders win get blown out 51-3 by the Bills in the AFC Championship game. And just like that, Bo Jackson's career in the NFL is over. Again, I know he was a monster. I know if we play the what-if game he played 10 to 12 years, he would have had around probably 12,000 rushing yards. And we are talking about Bo Jackson currently sitting in the Hall of Fame today. Maybe if he is drafted, well, he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1986. Maybe if he plays with Tampa Bay, his career lasts longer. However, he would have hated playing football if he played with Tampa Bay. So, at the same time, Bo Jackson's career is so tough to get a gauge on. Based off those statistics in front of me, yeah, he's not even close to the Hall of Fame, but I understand the argument, and I understand you want to play the what-if game, and that's why I get why he's a legend today in the NFL. But again, I cannot put a guy who's just made one Pro Bowl and not even break the 3,000-yard barrier in the Hall of Fame. Again, I know he had 16 career touchdowns in only 4 seasons. Again, I'm not knocking on him. Why do you think Bo Jackson's in the video? I'm giving him his credit. I just can't put him in the Hall of Fame for playing such a short career. Next up, we have Brian Westbrook, played on the Eagles from 2002 to 2009 before wrapping up his career with San Francisco in 2010. Just like a few of these guys on the list, 2 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro, over 1,300 rushing attempts in the regular season for 6,335 yards and 41 touchdowns. In the playoffs, you can chuck on quite a bit more yards to that. 591 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns to his stats. So, still, even if you include his playoff statistics, he doesn't break the 7,000-yard barrier, and he's only at 44 total career touchdowns. Now, this is a guy who was part of some great Philadelphia Eagle teams in 2000s. You know, in the Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb, Brian Dawkins Eagles era football. He was their main running back when he replaced Deuce Staley when he got drafted in 2002. Westbrook started off as a punt returner, and he was a great special teams player. In his career, he had almost 500 return yards with 2 touchdowns. For a punt returner, honestly, in the early 2000s, that's not terrible. But again, not necessarily that he played a too short career, because people who have played 9 years in the NFL are in the Hall of Fame. It's the fact that, again, he doesn't have the yardage and the accolades. Because, again, other than the 2 Pro Bowls, the 1 All-Pro, and almost 7,000 career rushing yards, he has nothing to his name. Other than the Pro Bowls and the 1 All-Pro. Made the best he could out of a career, out of a 3rd-round pick. I give him credit. He's probably, without question, top 3 running backs in Philadelphia Eagles history. I'll give the man credit, just like I'm giving all of these men credit. But at the end of the day, I can't put a guy who has that much lackluster achievements in the Hall of Fame. And I said the same thing about Donovan McNabb in my quarterbacks edition. You know, I love the early 2000s Eagles, but at the same time, just because they were consistently great, that's awesome. But how much is that because of Andy Reid and a great coaching staff? How much of that was because they had constantly one of the top defenses in the league each year? Yeah, the offense was fine all of those years. McNabb, Westbrook, you know, those guys were good. But at the same time, the only Hall of Famer I'd probably say from that Eagles offense is Terrell Owens. And that's not a knock on Westbrook and McNabb. They all had great careers. But again, for me to put Westbrook in the Hall of Fame, it's a reach. Again, if Westbrook played in the 70s, 80s, I would be leaning towards yes. But again, when you're playing in the 2000s, where probably the league was at its best in running backs until like right now, I don't know if I can do it. Not a bad player, Eagles legend, but I can't put him in the Hall of Fame. All right. Talking about the 1980s, Gerald Riggs played from 1992 to 1991, making 3 Pro Bowls and winning Super Bowl with Washington. His best NFL season, without a question, came in 1985. That was his first Pro Bowl appearance. Led the league in carries with 397, had 1,719 rushing yards along with 10 touchdowns. I don't know how he didn't make All-Pro, but even more concerning, the year prior in 1984, he had 1,486 yards, 10 touchdowns, or rather 13 touchdowns, and didn't even make the Pro Bowl. So that's just embarrassing on the NFL by itself. However, after 1986, and I guess technically 1987, because 87 was his last Pro Bowl, he kind of fell off a little bit. Again, he signed with Washington in 1989, stayed there for 3 seasons, won Super Bowl 26 with them. He scored 11 rushing touchdowns in the regular season, and he scored 6 rushing touchdowns on just 11 carries in the Redskins Super Bowl run. The only thing that pretty much hurts his resume with his time with the Falcons is that, again, I don't know how he didn't make the Pro Bowl in 1984, but also he only played one playoff game. One playoff game with the Falcons. 9 rushes for 38 yards and a wild card loss to the Vikings in 1982. That was his only playoff appearance. Until 1990 when he joined the Redskins. And again, 1990, an okay postseason, but 1991 is... If you want to talk about having 69 career touchdowns compared to 75, well, now we're talking. But again, Riggins has a touchdown total, I think, to be in the Hall of Fame. 8,000 rushing yards is, I think, where I start to oh my goodness, I'm tripping over my words here. Start to oh my goodness. Start to basically ponder whether a player should be in the Hall of Fame. That probably felt like forever for the audience. I apologize that I was blanking on the word there for a second. But anyway. Yeah, Riggins had a good career. Hall of Fame career? Maybe. Again, he has the statistics to make it in. Doesn't really have the accolades, but he does have the statistics, so that kind of saves him. I would say Hall of Fame, maybe. It's tough because if you put Riggs in the Hall of Fame, you're going to have to put so many other players in the Hall of Fame. So, Gerald Riggs, I would say yes, but he's still got to wait. What's up, Sean and Mike? Thanks for tuning in. How about Kirk Cousins? That would have been fun for the quarterback edition. Maybe if I do an active players... maybe if I do an active players list, I can include Kirk Cousins on that. I don't know. Maybe if Kirk Cousins, I don't know. Right now, if Kirk Cousins was to retire tomorrow, would I put him in the Hall of Fame? No. If he was to win a few more playoff games and potentially a Super Bowl, yes, I would. But Cousins still got years to go. Hence why I talk about retired players in this series. Cousins got a little ways to go before he retires, so we'll get to that conclusion in due time. Jamal Anderson is next. He won Pro Bowl and won All-Pro. That was back in 1998, where he took the league by storm. Falcons made it to Super Bowl 33 before losing. But led the league in rushing attempts with 410, which explains for his 1,846 rushing yards that year, along with 14 touchdowns. Do the dirty bird. We're doing the dirty bird. Anyway, his rookie year, abysmal. He appeared in 3 games and ran for -1 yards. But just 2 seasons later, he became a 1,000-yard rusher. He ran for 1,000 yards in 4 of the next 5 seasons after that. Who knows what he would have done in 1999 if he didn't get injured. 2001, he also got injured, essentially ending his career. 5,336 rushing yards and 34 regular season touchdowns. Anderson, I mean, to only get 5,000 rushing yards in 88 career games, I think is pretty impressive. And again, this guy battled through 2 huge injuries. But at the end of the day, I can't say Anderson's a Hall of Famer because, again, other than the All-Pro, he doesn't really have any accolades. Now that he was a bad running back, he's definitely the best Falcon running back in history. I mean, who else could you really argue with other than Gerald Riggs? Actually, Riggs probably is. Anderson's probably second. I know the younger generation's going to say, but Devontae Freeman was really good his first few years in the league, which he was, but don't you dare compare him to Gerald Riggs or Jamal Anderson. You want to talk about OG Falcon running backs? These two right there, not Brian Westbrook, it's these two right here. Anyway, Anderson, yeah, not going to make the Hall of Fame. If he was going to make the Hall of Fame, he probably would have honestly been inducted already. Is he an Atlanta Falcons legend? Yes. Is he an NFL legend? Kinda, but is he a Hall of Famer? No. Moving on to Eddie George, and I promise I will not be a biased Jaguar fan here, but Eddie George, he played in 9 seasons, had over 10,000 career rushing yards and 68 regular season touchdowns, 4 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro, 1996 Offensive Rookie of the Year. It was an All-Pro in 2000 where he had a career best 403 carries for 1,509 yards and 14 touchdowns. And this guy was great up until his last year with the Cowboys, where in 2004 he only ran for 432 yards and 4 touchdowns. But we're not here to focus about his one little blimp with the Cowboys, all right? We're talking about his time in 1996 when he was a rookie with the Houston Oilers and the rest of his time with the Tennessee Titans. Let me just say, his rookie year, I get he won Offensive Rookie of the Year, but the fact he didn't make a Pro Bowl is still crazy. 3,068 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. Should have made the Pro Bowl. He did make the Pro Bowl from 97 to 2000. Again, 2000, I already talked about that great season. 1999, that was the year the Titans played the Rams in Super Bowl 34. He had 1,304 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns in that regular season. And, of course, when you mention Eddie George and clutch performances, first thing that comes to mind is the 99 playoffs. In 4 games, he averaged 112 yards per game in the playoffs. In the playoffs against Bruce Smith and the Buffalo Bills, the Indianapolis Colts, who were at the time led by, never mind, I'm about to say Tony Dungy, but no, he didn't join the Colts until when? 03? 02, 03? Anyway, played Tony Brackens and the Jacksonville Jaguars, the 14-2 Jaguars, and then played in Super Bowl 34 against the Rams in a stout defense there. And he still managed to pick up 449 yards and 3 touchdowns on 108 carries. That's very good. Again, I've already talked about it. Once you break the 10,000-yard barrier, you already got my attention when it comes to speaking Hall of Fame volume. And yes, I do think Eddie George is a Hall of Famer. Again, he probably should have gotten in by now, if I'm being brutally honest. I don't know why he's got to wait so long. Well, that's neither here nor there. Eddie George he did a phenomenal job, especially from 1997 to 2003. He was consistently, I guess, besides 2001, he was consistently a top probably 7 running back in the league, like at absolute worst. Again, the 4 Pro Bowls, the 1 All-Pro, and the Rookie of the Year, and the fantastic postseason performance in 99, it does it for me. Eddie George in the Hall of Fame. I'm cool with a few Titans getting in the Hall of Fame. Eddie George is one of them. All right, next up we have Lorenzo Neal. Interesting because he's actually a fullback. 4-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. Hall of Fame 2000s team. I know you're going to take a look at his rushing yards. You're going to, in fact, take a look at his entire yards, and you're going to say, Grant, why is he here? He only had 1,900 total career yards. Remember, this man was a fullback. And for a fullback to have almost 2,000 career rushing yards, granted he did play in the 90s and 2000s, but for a guy to play in 239 career games, very impressive stuff. One of the best fullbacks of all time. I put Mike Allstott in the Hall of Fame in my previous one of these Hall of Fame or Hall of Good videos. But for Lorenzo Neal, I'm going to have to say no. Because again, the yardage, I respected that he played way longer than Allstott. And he honestly has more probably achievements than Allstott. The issue is Allstott has significantly better statistics. Also, Neal actually played on the Buccaneers from 99 to, he actually played on the Buccaneers in, when did he play? In 1998. Oh man, if the Buccaneers were rocking with Allstott and Neal that year, they had to have been. Allstott was drafted in 96. So yeah, they had to be rocking with Neal and Allstott. Well, it explains why the Bucs made the playoffs in 98. Wow. Actually, not 98, 97 they made the playoffs. Anyway, Neal, great player, but Hall of Fame, I don't know. Fullback Hall of Fame, yeah, but I think in general he doesn't make it. Ooh, skipped over one there. Demarco Murray is next. This is an interesting one considering he is a newer player, so people are going to be way more harsh when it comes to grading him for the Hall of Fame. Well, let's take a look here. 3 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro, 2014 Offensive Player of the Year. He had 7,100 plus rushing yards and 49 regular season touchdowns. Yeah, 2014, his only All-Pro, Offensive Player of the Year. It's no question. 392 rushing attempts, 1,845 yards, 13 touchdowns. 115.3 a game. That is 35 more yards than his second highest average in a season. As a rookie in 2011, he was just 3 yards shy of 900 rushing yards. He also led the league with the longest rushing touchdown of the year with a 91-yard touchdown. I think that was against the Rams. Don't quote me on that, though. 2013 made his first Pro Bowl, had 1,121 yards and 9 touchdowns. We already talked about 2014. He was incredible. 2015, joined the Eagles, averaged 46 yards a game. Yeah, he really took a dip from 2014 to 2015. One of the main culprits why you don't give a contract to a running back after a breakout season, unless your name is Derrick Henry. We get the deal here. He had 702 rushing yards with 6 touchdowns. Not terrible, but considering he was making, $40 million? Yeah, not good. Then he joined the Titans in 2016 and 2017, helping out the first 2 years of Derrick Henry's career. In 2016, he actually made the Pro Bowl. 1,287 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. Yeah, man, that 2016 Tennessee team, and only went 9-7 and just missed out on the playoffs. I mean, with that rushing attack, Derrick Henry as a rookie, Demarco Murray, and Marcus Mariota, I'm going to tell you why they didn't make the playoffs. It's because their receiving core was terrible. They relied on the run game. But anyway, then he retired after the 2017 season after rushing for 659 more yards and 6 more touchdowns. In the playoffs, he only played in 2 playoff games. He had 198 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in 2014 against the Lions and Packers. Hall of Famer. Tough. I think if he played in the 80s and 90s, I think, yes, he just squeaks in. But because he played in the 21st century, I don't know. It's tough. But because he played in this decade of football, well, I guess technically speaking, last decade of football, I'm going to say no. A no, but a maybe. Kind of like what I brought up with Jamal. I was going to say like when I brought up with Jamal Lewis in last video, but I realized if Demarco Murray's in the Hall of Fame, then it's an absolute slap in the face that Jamal Lewis wouldn't be. So, I guess by that standards, it's tough, man. I think Demarco Murray will eventually get in. It's just going to be like 50 years from now. That's where I kind of stand on Murray. Does he have the statistics too? Sure. Will he? I doubt it. Or at least not anytime soon. Me personally, though, since this is about what I think personally, I will put him in the Hall of Fame. But a very extremely generous. All right, next up we have Amman Green, former Seahawk and Packer running back. Well, he also spent that terrible season with the Texans in 07 and 08 anyway. He had one of the most underrated rushing seasons ever by a running back. When you bring up Amman Green, you just remember he was a consistently great running back with the Packers in the early 2000s. Remember, this is a man was the best running back by far in 2003. And he still didn't make an all-pro appearance, which I think is absolutely mind-boggling. 1,883 rushing yards, 15 touchdowns, 100 first downs rushing, led the league with the longest rushing touchdown at 98 yards, 117.2 yards a game, shattered his second career best, which was 88.6 yards a game, which is what he averaged in 2002. This game of the Pro Bowl from 2001 to 2004, didn't make the Pro Bowl again. Had a solid 2000, solid 2000 and 2006 season, despite not making the Pro Bowl. And again, pretty forgettable 10 years with the Seahawks and Texans. But again, we're primarily talking about his time with the Packers here. And again, as a third-round player, 76 overall draft pick, he had a very good career. And I don't think Green would regret any of it. 9,205 yards, 60 regular season touchdowns. Flip over to the playoffs, 521 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I was about to say, he wasn't really a playoff performer, Amman Green. He had a good 2003 playoff run. I'll give him credit. In just 2 games, he managed 222 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging 111 yards per game. I'll give him credit on that. But other than 2003, mediocre-ish playoff stats. Amman Green should be in the Hall of Fame, especially if I just put Demarco Murray in the Hall of Fame. I feel like Amman Green's kind of in the same spot as him. He has 4 Pro Bowls instead of 3, but Murray has the All-Pro and the Offensive Player of the Year. Green, also 1,800-yard rusher, and has honestly more career rushing yards and 1 more Pro Bowl. So, yes, I will put Amman Green in the Hall of Fame. Will the NFL put him in the Hall of Fame? I have no idea. Again, just like DeMarco Murray, maybe they will 20 years from now. Running backs, I feel, really get shafted because there's always a lot of really good running backs. But Amman Green, he at least makes my Hall of Fame. All right, next up we go to the late, great Don Perkins. He actually passed away 2 weeks ago. Yeah, on June 9th. Friday, June 9th. Tomorrow, actually today marks 2 weeks since his passing. And we're going to go talk about whether he belongs in the Hall of Fame or not. 6 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro. I know what you're already thinking. Whoa, it's 6 Pro Bowls and 1 All-Pro. How is he not already in the Hall of Fame? 1 decade, 1960s, obviously, if you couldn't tell from the picture. He had, in the regular season, he had exactly 1,500 career carries, 6,000 yards, 42 touchdowns. In the playoffs, you can add on another 284 yards with 3 touchdowns. So at the end of the day, he has 6,600 plus with 45. And here's why I'm going to say he is a Hall of Famer, because he played in the 1960s. There's one thing, if he played in I would imagine if he played in any time past the mid-1980s, I probably would have to put my foot down and say it's a close call, but no, he does not belong in the Hall of Fame. But how often do we see players from the late 60s, or rather just from the 60s, because he played from 61 to 68, we see just random blimps of 60s and 70 players appear in the Hall of Fame? It happens quite often. Like, I know last year it was Cliff Branch and whatnot. Like, players from the 60s, 70s, and really early 80s are still getting inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I think now that Don Perkins has passed away, as much as I hate to say this, it's going to bring attention to his name again. And hopefully do the respectful thing, honor his family, and put him in the Hall of Fame. His career high in rushing yards, which was his only all-pro season, he had 222 rushes for 945 yards and 7 touchdowns. 945 yards in 1962. That's remarkable. He didn't lead the league, but that's still incredible. And his career high in rushing touchdowns was in 1966. 726 yards and 8 touchdowns. Again, I think if Don Perkins plays 85, 86 or after, I would say it's really close, but I would say no. But the fact that he played in the 60s and played on some really good Tom Landry Cowboy teams, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and I'll put him in the Hall of Fame. Next up, we have Leshaw Mccoy. Shady. How do I explain? I'm not putting his 2 Super Bowl championships. I'm not putting his 2 Super Bowl championships in this argument because he was a healthy scratch for both of them. 54 with the Chiefs and 55 with the Bucs. No. He was a healthy scratch for both Super Bowls. Nice try. I'm not including his postseason stats with the Chiefs and Bucs here. We're just going to be focusing on his time with the Eagles and the Bills. What's up, Two Evil of Hope? Thanks for stopping by. I know the NBA draft is on, but I was in the mood to do another Hall of Fame or Hall of Good. Plus, I'll probably be covering the NHL draft in a couple weeks anyways, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, McCoy, let's take a look at his statistics here. He ran for 1,000 yards 6 times in his career. In 2011 and 2013, he made all pros. In 2011, he led the league in touchdowns with 17, 1,309 yards. That's where he had that iconic game against the Lions in the snow. That was the 2013 season. In 2013, after a kind of mediocre 2012 season, he only played 12 games. 2013, bounced back, made another all-pro, 1,607 rushing yards, along with 9 touchdowns. And then 2014 through 2017, he made the Pro Bowl. The only year from 2011 to 2017 he didn't make the Pro Bowl was in 2012. Like I mentioned, they only played 12 games. 2014, 1,319 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2015, traded the Buffalo Bills for Kiko Alonso. Highway robbery trade. The Bills won it by a mile. As again, he would go on to make 3 straight Pro Bowls. 2015, he ran for 895 yards. 2016, 1,267, along with 13 touchdowns. In 2017, the year Buffalo snuck into the playoffs after the Bengals beat the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills had the tiebreaker, 1,138 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. And after a mediocre 2018 season, got cut by Buffalo, won 2 rings. I mean, to be fair, a 31-year-old running backup, 465 yards and 4 touchdowns. With the Chiefs, at least in the regular season, he did what he needed to do. Bucks, we're not even going to mention that because that's just going to hurt his Hall of Fame chances. In the playoffs, he had 222 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. That was with the Eagles in the 2013 wildcard game against the Saints. So Amman Green had just as much playoff yards in 2003 than Leshaw Mccoy did in his entire career. Very interesting. But, I mean, again, it's weird because McCoy, the Eagles were weird back in the early 2010s. They were a good team, but not a great team. They only made the playoffs, they made the playoffs 3 times with McCoy as an Eagle, but he was a backup to Westbrook in 2009. In 2010, 12 rushes for 46 yards. He was probably the starter at that point. He just didn't have a great game. And then, Buffalo, wildcard game against Jacksonville. 19 rushes, 75 yards, didn't score a touchdown. Again, Chiefs in Tampa Bay in 2020. He didn't rush for a singular yard in either postseason, but he is a 2-time Super Bowl champ. And, I mean, I guess you can't take it away from him, but at the end of the day, 11,000 rushing yards, 73 touchdowns, Hall of Famer in my opinion. And last but not least, beast mode, Marshawn Lynch, 5-time Pro Bowler, only made 1 All-Pro, which was back in 2012, but 1,590 rushing yards. He had 85 career rushing touchdowns, along with 10,000 plus rushing yards in the regular season. Let's not forget Beastquake run against the Saints in the 2011 wildcard game. Let's not forget 288 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns on the Seahawks' way to winning Super Bowl 48. Super Bowl 49 appearance, 63 rushes for 318 yards and 2 touchdowns, most rushing yards in his career. This man came out of retirement to join the Seahawks in 2019, and he scored 3 touchdowns in the playoffs, 1 in the regular season. What else do you want me to say? Led the league in rushing touchdowns in 2013, 2014. He had 12 in 2013 in 2014. The guy was incredible. He even made a Pro Bowl as a Bill. Remember, he was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 2007. He even made a Pro Bowl with Buffalo in 2008. Got traded to the Seahawks in 2010. Made the Pro Bowl 2011 to 2014. 2015 goes for 400 yards, playing through injuries. Doesn't play in 2016. Comes back with the Raiders in 2017. Scores 7 touchdowns. Almost racks up 900 yards. 2018, not impressive. Retires, comes out of retirement to join the Seahawks in 2019 and scores 3 more touchdowns in the playoffs. 5-time Pro Bowler, 85 rushing yards, 10,000 rushing yards in the regular season, and a lot of iconic plays and moments. Literally, you watch a Marshawn Lynch highlight reel, that video is going to be at least 9+ minutes because that's how many consistently great highlights there were of Lynch, especially from 2011 to 2015. And when he was on the Seahawks, just dominance. Just straight up dominance. He was the best running back in the league, in my opinion. At least I started watching football in 2013. Yeah, from at least 2013 to 2014. I thought he was the best running back in the league. That's right, Demarco Murray. I even thought Marshawn Lynch was a better running back than Demarco Murray in 2014. Now, that's it. Now, that's a hot take, but based off of what I've seen, based off the highlights, maybe not statistics per se, but Marshawn Lynch was an animal. He'll be eligible in 2025, I'm pretty sure, or 2024 for the Hall of Fame. I don't know if he gets in first ballot, but I will say Marshawn Lynch is definitely getting into a Hall of Fame. Even if he had only 7,000 to 8,000 rushing yards, you want to know why I'd still say yes? Because of his publicity and because of his Pro Bowls. And he did make a Hall of Fame 2010 team. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed episode 3 of Hall of Fame or Hall of Good. This was our second running back edition. We're going to continue to move down the line. I will not do a part 3 for running backs. I'll definitely transfer over to receivers. I got a few receivers off the top of my head I want to talk about. Julian Edelman's one of them. Keyshawn Johnson. Deshaun Jackson, potentially, if he retires by then. I know he's contemplating retirement, so we'll see there. Antonio Brown's another one we may contemplate if he is retired or not. And, I mean, those are just some off the top of my head. Chad Ochocinco, Mark Clayton. Yeah, I mean, we got a few to definitely review, but that'll be for the next edition of Hall of Fame or Hall of Good. So, again, we're just going to continue to move down the line. We'll go to receivers. We'll go to tight ends. No offense, there is probably a good chance I skip offensive line, especially now that my boy Tony Baselli's in the Hall of Fame. And then we're going to head to defense, defensive line, cornerbacks, safeties, and we're going to have a blast with the special teams video. Definitely planning way far ahead into the future. I don't know, especially starting next week, my broadcasting schedule is going to be all jumbled up. So we'll see what happens. But considering that the NHL Finals will be concluding by sometime next week, and if I still have a lot of free time to film videos, I will. And that's where you're going to get a lot of these Hall of Fame or Hall of Good videos, because I love giving my predictions on whether players should be in the Hall of Fame or not. And you guys seem to enjoy it, so I'm just going to continue to do it. But until next time, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm Grant Fluff from Fletcher Sports Zone saying enjoy the rest of your evening. If I do broadcast tomorrow, Game 5 between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Colorado Avalanche. No promises, but all is looking like I will be able to commentate that. So, hope to see you then. We'll not be able to probably commentate Saturday through Tuesday, which kind of stinks. Then maybe we'll do the Hall of Fame or Hall of Good receiver edition on Wednesday of next week.